The scent of freshly cut grass and distant barbecue smoke usually filled our little corner of Oakhaven, a quiet pocket of the Midwest where life felt settled, safe. That was the word I'd always clung to after Maya. Safe. My wife Clara, our baby daughter Lily, our comfortable house on Maple Street. It was the picture I'd painted in my head during the darkest days after that toxic relationship, and somehow, impossibly, I'd made it real. Or so I thought. I was 32, Clara 33. We'd navigated the usual bumps of early marriage, the sleepless nights with a newborn, the gentle settling into parenthood. Lily, barely 6 months old, was a bright, gurgling light, the absolute center of our universe. Clara was everything I'd never known I needed. Warm, funny, insightful, supportive. She listened when I rarely spoke about Maya, the woman who'd chipped away at my self-worth until I felt like dust. Clara was the solid ground I'd found. My perfect wife, my anchor. My laptop, a workhorse I relied on for my freelance graphic design projects, decided to stage a rebellion last Tuesday. Battery dead, wouldn't charge, deadline looming. "Hey, can I hop on yours for a bit?" I asked Clara, gesturing to a sleek, newer model on the kitchen counter. She just smiled, juggling Lily on her hip. "Go for it, Hon. Password's the same as always." Our digital lives were an open book, or so I believed. No need for secrets, right? We shared accounts for streaming services, joint finances were transparent. It was part of the trust we'd built, brick by careful brick, on the foundation of my past being so not trusting. I opened her laptop, logged in. The desktop was tidy, organized. I navigated to the cloud storage folder where she kept some shared documents. That's when I saw it. Not a shared folder. A separate icon, tucked away, labeled simply and innocuously Archive C. It wasn't synced with anything I knew about. Curiosity, a mild, innocent curiosity, nudged me. Was it old work files? University stuff? I double-clicked. It asked for a password, not our usual shared password. A different one, my brow furrowed. Clara had said the same as always. Maybe she meant her login password? I tried that, didn't work. I tried a few other common passwords she might use, her maiden name, Lily's birth date. Nothing. A flicker of something cold touched my gut. Not suspicion yet, just unfamiliarity. Clara wasn't one for digital mystery boxes. Her online life seemed as straightforward as her offline one. I glanced at her across the room, cooing at Lily. She looked so normal, so loving. The feeling passed. Probably just some old, forgotten work encryption. But the graphic designer in me, the part that noticed patterns and details, saw something in the file properties. A date. Modified recently. Very recently. Just last week. Why would an old archive be modified last week? I spent the next 20 minutes trying variations, cycling through passwords I knew she'd used years ago, random strings I'd seen her type. Nothing. A frustrating puzzle. I was about to give up and just borrow Sarah's laptop when I remembered something. A silly inside joke password from when we first started dating. A ridiculous word combined with a significant number. I typed it in, half joking. The folder opened. It wasn't work. It wasn't old university projects. It was her. Maya. Not just a few photos, hundreds. Neatly organized into subfolders with cryptic names. Early days, the move, work, hobbies, appearance. I clicked into early days. Photos of Maya from years ago, social media screenshots I'd never seen. Some looked like they were taken from public profiles, others not. Candid shots with friends, family gatherings. Faces of others were often blurred, or the photos were tightly cropped, focusing only on Maya. My hands started to tremble. Why did Clara have these? Had she been curious when we first got serious? A little check-up on the ex? Maybe. It was weird, obsessive even, but maybe understandable in a dark way. But the dates on the files, they weren't just from when we started dating. The appearance folder was modified last week. I opened appearance. More photos of Maya. But these were different. Close-ups. Her hair, a specific shade of auburn she'd dyed it once, a particular way she braided it. Her hands holding a distinctive coffee mug. Her wearing a blouse I vaguely remembered her owning years ago. Links saved in the folder. I clicked one. It went to an online store. The exact blouse. Another link, a specific brand and model of running shoes Maya used to wear. Another, the coffee mug. A cold dread, unlike anything I'd ever felt, began to spread through me. It wasn't just photos, it was research. Detailed, granular research. I clicked back to the main folder. Work. Screenshots of LinkedIn profiles, articles about her industry, Photos from what looked like work events. Again, Maya zoomed in, others blurred. Hobbies. Screenshots from online forums, specific interest groups. A video file. I clicked it. A short clip of Maya participating in an outdoor activity. The video was shaky, like it was filmed discreetly from a distance. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to lean back in the chair. This wasn't curiosity. This was stalking. Long-term, meticulous and recent. I scrolled through the main folder again. 348 items. Photos, links, documents, videos. Dating back 9 years, right when Clara and I met. Updated last week. Then I saw it. A subfolder labelled Notes. I clicked. Text documents. Not just notes on where photos were found, but observations. Subject seen at Oakwood Park, 3:15 p.m, wearing blue jacket. Hair colour looks lighter in new profile pic. Check salon websites in her area. Found her sister's public Instagram. Subject visible in background of beach photo, July 2021. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just digital archaeology. This was active, ongoing surveillance. But Maya lived in another country now. How? The notes mentioned specific parks, local businesses from years ago before she moved. But the recent updates, how? Then the realization, slow and sickening, began to dawn. The links to clothing, the focus on her hair, her accessories. Clara's new running shoes, the same brand Maya wore. The way Clara had recently started styling her hair, a specific braid I'd never seen her do before but recognized from the photos. The sudden interest Clara had developed in a niche outdoor hobby, the same one in the video clip. It wasn't just stalking. She was copying her, becoming her. My graphic designer's eye, trained to spot subtle differences, now saw them everywhere. The way Clara held her coffee mug, a new phrase she'd started using, even the pattern on a decorative pillow on the sofa. I'd seen it in a photo of Maya's apartment. My perfect wife, my anchor. Had she been a chameleon all along? Was the woman I married, the mother of my child, just an imitation? A wave of panic, sharp and suffocating, seized me. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. I stumbled to the kitchen sink and retched, nothing but bile coming up. The sounds of Lily cooing from the living room, the gentle rhythm of Clara talking to her, felt alien, horrifying. I looked at my wife, holding our daughter, and saw a stranger. A meticulous, deceptive stranger who had built our life together on a foundation of obsession with my past trauma. Everything felt like a lie. Our love, our shared jokes, her interests. Was any of it real? Or was it all just pieces of Maya stitched together into a person designed to... what? Please me? Replace the past? I stumbled back to the laptop, my hands shaking violently. I had to close it. Get away from it. As I fumbled with the mouse, I accidentally clicked a different folder name. Hex the X. My stomach clenched again. I didn't open it. I slammed the laptop shut as if it were burning me. I backed away slowly, my eyes fixed on Clara. She looked up, smiling. "Everything okay, Hon?" "You look pale." I just nodded, unable to speak, a strangled sound catching in my throat. I had to get out, think. But where could I go? My house felt like a cage. My wife felt like an imposter. I mumbled something about needing air and stumbled out the back door into the small, manicured backyard. The scent of grass, once comforting, now felt cloying, fake, like everything else. I pulled out my phone, fingers fumbling. I needed to talk to Sarah. She was grounded, practical. She knew about Maya, knew how much that relationship had messed me up. Maybe she could make sense of this nightmare. Dialing her number felt like reaching for a lifeline in a storm. It rang twice. "Hey, Ethan, everything okay?" "You sound off." "Sarah." My voice was a strained whisper. Something terrible has happened." I tried to explain, haltingly at first, then the words tumbling out in a rush of fear and disbelief. The secret account, the hundreds of photos, the notes, the links, the horrifying realization of the mimicry. Sarah listened, mostly in silence, her occasional gasps or sharp intakes of breath punctuating my fragmented confession. Wait, slow down," she finally said, her voice tight with shock. "Clara is stalking your ex and copying her?" "Yes, the hair, Sarah, and the running shoes, and that weird interest she suddenly got in hiking last year. Maya was a huge hiker, I thought it was her finding new things she liked, but it was all Maya." The words tasted like ash. "Ethan, that's not just weird. That's really messed up. Like, deeply unsettling." "Unsettling doesn't cover," I choked out, leaning against the fence, the wood rough against my cheek. "I feel sick. I look at Clara, and I don't know who she is. Was any of it real? Did she ever actually love me, or was I just a way to get closer to Maya? Or was she just using Maya as some kind of template? Sarah was quiet for a moment. Okay, Ethan, just breathe. You're safe. Lily's safe. This is a massive betrayal, yes, and it's creepy as hell, but it's psychological. It's not immediate physical danger, is it? I don't know, I admitted, the edge of panic still hovering. She built this whole elaborate lie for years. What else is she capable of? Right now, she's capable of holding your daughter and talking about dinner, Sarah said, her voice firm. That level of secrecy and obsession, it screams of deep insecurity, maybe something more. She needs help, Ethan, serious help, and you do too. You've just had your entire reality ripped apart. Help? Can you even help something like this? I don't know, Sarah said honestly, but you can't just pretend it didn't happen. You have to confront her, you have to understand why, and you need to talk to a professional. Like yesterday. A therapist, a couples counselor, someone who can help you figure out what the hell is going on and what you do next. We talked for a long time. Sarah helped me piece together some of the timeline, pointing out things I'd missed or dismissed. Clara's sudden interest in photography, using a camera identical to one Maya used to post pictures with. Her insistence on vacationing in certain types of locations that, looking back, mirrored Maya's recent travel photos. The subtle shifts in her personal style over the years, always just a beat behind whatever Maya seemed to be doing. It was horrifying, like watching a slow-motion psychological takeover that I had been blind to. Sarah urged me not to confront Clara when I was still reeling, to wait until I had a clearer head, maybe even with a plan or professional support lined up. But how could I wait? Living in the same house, pretending, knowing this secret, it felt impossible. We agreed she would look into therapists in our area, maybe some specializing in personality disorders or obsessive behaviors, though we both felt uncomfortable even saying those words about Clara. I promised to try and act normal, just for tonight, to hold Lily, to look at my wife, and try to see the woman I thought I married, while the image of the hidden archive, the cropped photos, and the chilling notes pulsed behind my eyes. Hanging up, the silence of the backyard felt heavy, charged. I looked back at the house, the warm glow from the living room windows. It no longer looked like my safe haven. It looked like a stage, where a performance had been running for years, and I was the only audience member who hadn't realized it was all fake. Over the next couple of days, I moved through a fog. I went to my office downtown, tried to work, but the images from the laptop kept flashing in my mind. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a jolt of fear. Had she found out I knew? Was she watching me? The paranoia was a cold, constant companion. I avoided being alone with Clara as much as possible, clinging to Lily as a buffer. When Clara spoke, I found myself analyzing her words, her tone, searching for echoes of Maya, searching for the lie. It was exhausting. She noticed something was wrong, of course. Asked if I was feeling okay, if work was stressful. I mumbled evasive answers, hating myself for the deception, yet terrified of telling the truth. Sarah called daily, sending me links to therapists. The waiting lists were long. It felt like an eternity before I could even get an initial consultation. I felt trapped in this horrifying limbo. The Hex the X folder name kept coming back to me. What was that about? A dark joke? Or something more sinister? Clara had explained the Archive C name in her confession. It was a burner account. She'd deleted the original folder and moved everything to this new one when she got nervous. The old name, she'd said, was a planned excuse, if I ever found it. She would claim she was just saving them to perform some kind of joke hex or cleansing ritual to rid us of the bad energy from my past relationship. It was a lie designed to cover the truth of the stalking and mimicry. The sheer calculation of it made my skin crawl. One evening, Clara was putting Lily to bed. I was in the living room, staring blankly at the TV, the laptop sitting on the coffee table like a venomous snake. I opened it again. I had to be sure. I found the Archive C folder. It was still there, all of it, the photos, the notes, the links. She hadn't deleted it, not yet anyway, or maybe she had a backup. The thought sent another wave of nausea through me. I clicked on the notes again, reading through the chillingly mundane observations. Dates, times, locations. How had she even gotten this close? Had she followed her? before Maya moved abroad. It seemed impossible. Clara had a job, a life here, but the detail, it was terrifying. Then I saw a note that made my blood run cold in a new way. It wasn't about Maya's movements. It was a date, a time, and a location in our town. Followed by subject seen with Ethan. Subject laughed at his joke about the terrible coffee shop. Note, Ethan likes terrible coffee shops. This note was dated from when Clara and I were first dating. Early on, before we were exclusive, maybe. It implied she wasn't just stalking Maya, she was observing me, observing us together. Was I the target all along? Had she orchestrated meeting me? Had she cultivated the relationship based on observations of my interactions with Maya? The thought was a new, sharper kind of horror. Was the entire relationship a construction? No. Sarah's voice echoed in my head. Deep insecurity, latching on. The what if? I discussed with myself. The twisted protection motive Clara would later confess felt more plausible, less targeted at me from the start than this new fear. Maybe she saw me with Maya, saw the dynamic, and that sparked the initial twisted interest, not in me as a target, but in Maya as a subject, or maybe in our dynamic as something to understand or control. I closed the laptop again, careful this time. I couldn't handle any more discoveries right now. I needed the confrontation. I needed the truth, however ugly. Sarah had found a therapist who could do a preliminary consultation with me alone the next day. It wasn't couples counseling, but it was a start. A chance to talk to a professional before I blew up my life. The next day felt endless. The therapist's office was quiet, neutral. Dr. Ramirez was calm, listened without judgment as I poured out the whole bizarre, terrifying story. The photos, the stalking, the mimicry, the Hex the X name, the chilling notes, my fear that our entire relationship was fake. Dr. Ramirez didn't flinch. She asked questions, gentle but probing, about my past relationship with Maya, about my relationship with Clara, about Clara's personality, her insecurities. She explained that this kind of obsessive behavior, the identity mimicry, could stem from profound insecurity, a lack of stable self-identity, or even certain personality disorders. She validated my feelings of betrayal, fear, and confusion. She agreed that a confrontation was necessary, but needed to be handled carefully. She advised against doing it alone initially, suggesting a first session with a couples counselor, or at least having a plan for immediate separation if things went badly. But getting into couples counseling would take weeks. Living this lie for weeks felt unbearable. That evening, Clara suggested we go for a walk after putting Lily down. Just the two of us, like we used to. My stomach twisted, but I agreed. It felt like the moment had arrived, planned or not. We walked through the quiet streets of Oakhaven. The streetlights cast long shadows. The air was cool, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine. It should have been romantic. It felt like the walk to an execution. "Ethan," Clara started, her voice soft. "You've been so distant. Is everything okay? Is it work?" I stopped walking, turning to face her under the glow of a streetlight. Her face was open, concerned. The woman I loved. The woman who had a secret archive of my ex. "Clara," I said, my voice rough. "We need to talk about something I found." Her smile faltered. Her eyes widened slightly. "Found? What did you find?" I didn't beat around the bush. Dr. Ramirez's advice about careful confrontation flew out the window. The raw pain and fear were too strong. "I found the folder, Clara, the one on your laptop. Archives, see, with all the pictures of Maya." Her face drained of colour. She froze, her eyes fixed on mine, wide with panic. She didn't try to deny it, not really. "Ethan, I can explain." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Explain what, Clara?" I pushed, the anger finally breaking through the fear. "Explain why you have 348 photos of my ex-girlfriend. Why you've been collecting them for 9 years. Why you have notes on her movements. Why you're buying her clothes and copying her hair. Explain that." Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks. She reached for my arm, but I flinched away. "Please, Ethan, don't leave, please." "Leave?" The word felt like a punch. "I don't even know who you are. Was any of it real, Clara? Us? Lily? Was it all just some kind of game?" She sank onto a nearby park bench, burying her face in her hands, sobbing. "No. Oh, God, no. It was real. Us is real. Lily is real. That was different. That was a mistake, a terrible, terrible mistake." I sat beside her, rigid, the distance between us a chasm. "Tell me, Clara. Tell me everything. The truth. All of it." She took a shaky breath, wiping her eyes. Her confession was a torrent of pain, confusion, and twisted logic. "It started when we first started seeing each other," she began, her voice trembling. "You talked about her sometimes, not often, and mostly bad things, how toxic she was, how she hurt you, and I saw photos of her online, and I got curious. I wanted to understand this person who had hurt you so much." Okay. Curiosity. Still weird, but okay. "But then, you know how I am," she continued, her voice dropping. "I've always struggled with knowing who I am, with feeling enough. And you were so amazing, Ethan. And you had this past, this person who was such a big part of your life before me. And I think I got it into my head that maybe she still had some kind of hold on you, even if it was just the bad memories. Like she was still a threat to your happiness or to us. The what if. The twisted protection, my gut clenched. It sounds crazy, I know," she whispered, looking up at me, her eyes red-rimmed. "But I started looking her up more, trying to understand her, and it became a game, a challenge. She was so private online. It was hard to find things, and finding something new, it felt like a victory, like I was uncovering something important, like I was protecting you by knowing everything about her." Protecting me? By stalking my ex? The logic was so warped it was terrifying. "And the copying?" I asked, my voice flat. "The clothes? The hair?" She flinched. That was different. That came later. I saw things she liked, things she wore, and I just wondered if maybe those were the things you were drawn to. If I could be more like that person from your past, maybe I could somehow erase the bad parts for you. Or maybe it was just a way to feel closer to you, to understand what you had experienced." She trailed off, looking away in shame. "Or maybe I just lost myself in it. I don't know. It just became a compulsion. Finding something, buying it, changing my hair, it was like a secret project, something that was just mine. A secret project built on lies and obsession. And Hex the ex?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. She flinched again. That was just a stupid, dark joke with myself. If you ever found it, I was going to say I was saving the pictures to, burn them or something, to get rid of the bad energy. It was a lie, a terrible, planned lie. The calculation of that lie, ready to deploy, chilled me to the bone. It wasn't just a compulsion, it was deception. "I deleted it," she said quickly. "The folder. When you asked about the laptop, I deleted it. I promise." I didn't respond. I had seen it less than an hour ago. Still there. Another lie, or had she done it immediately after I left the house? I didn't know what to believe. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," she sobbed, reaching for me again. "I messed up. I know I messed up. I need help. I want to get help. Please don't leave me. Please don't take Lily." Take Lily? The thought hadn't fully formed, not as a concrete plan, but the raw, panicked urge to protect my daughter from this pathology had been there. Hearing her say it out loud felt like another punch. "I don't know. Clara," I said, my voice heavy with exhaustion and pain. I don't know." We sat there for a long time in silence, the weight of her confession hanging between us. The perfect suburban night felt like a cruel mockery of the chaos inside me. The next few weeks were a blur of pain, confusion, and tentative steps forward. We didn't separate physically, but the emotional chasm was immense. We slept in the same bed but felt miles apart. Every time I looked at her, I saw the two Claras, the loving wife and mother and the obsessive, secretive stalker. Reconciling them felt impossible. We started couples counseling the following week. Finding a therapist who specialized in these kinds of complex issues, who had an opening, felt like a miracle. Dr. Evans was different from Dr. Ramirez, more focused on the relational dynamic, facilitating communication between us. The sessions were brutal, raw, painful. Clara delved deeper into her insecurities, her lifelong feeling of being a blank slate, her struggle with identity. She talked about feeling like she had to earn love, that she wasn't inherently worthy. Hearing about her past, the subtle ways she felt overlooked or inadequate, didn't excuse her actions, but it provided a terrifying context. Her obsession with Maya wasn't just about my past. It was a symptom of her own deep-seated issues, projected onto the person she saw as a benchmark, or maybe a threat to the fragile sense of stability she'd found with me. She admitted to the Hex the Ex lie, confirming she had planned it as a cover story. She confessed she hadn't deleted the folder immediately, frozen by panic, but claimed she had done it later that night, after our walk. I still didn't entirely trust her, the doubt a constant hum beneath the surface. I checked her laptop again when she was out. The folder was gone. Had she backed it up elsewhere? The paranoia was relentless. Clara also started individual therapy, as Dr. Evans strongly recommended. Her work there was separate from ours, focusing on her identity issues and obsessive tendencies. She seemed committed, attending every session, doing the homework. She also started dismantling the physical mimicry. The running shoes disappeared from the shoe rack, the decorative pillow from the sofa. She stopped styling her hair in the specific braid. Small things, but tangible signs that she was trying to shed the Maya she'd wrapped herself in. It was unsettling to watch, like she was shedding a skin, revealing... Who? I still didn't know, did she? In couples therapy, we worked on communication, on rebuilding trust. It was agonizingly slow. Every time I felt a flicker of connection, of remembering the woman I loved, a detail from the archive would flash in my mind. The cropped photos, the notes, the chilling video clip. The distrust was a wall between us, sometimes thin enough to see through, sometimes thick and impenetrable. I struggled to articulate the depth of the betrayal. It wasn't just infidelity. It felt like our entire shared history was a carefully constructed illusion. How do you trust someone who has shown you they are capable of such elaborate, long-term deception, driven by motives you can barely comprehend? I feel like I married a ghost, I said in one session, the words raw with pain, or a performance artist. I don't know where Clara ends and the imitation begins. Clara would cry, express remorse, reiterate her desire to change, to heal. I saw her pain, her desperation. But the image of her meticulously collecting data on Maya, creating fake accounts, finding yearbook photos, it was a cold, hard fact that chipped away at any empathy I felt. Dr. Evans guided us through exercises, helping us express our needs, our fears. I needed honesty, complete transparency going forward. Clara needed to understand that her actions had caused profound trauma and that rebuilding trust wasn't a guarantee, but a privilege she had to earn back, potentially over years. The what-if motive, the twisted protective instinct, came up in therapy. Clara explained how hearing about Maya's abuse of me had, in her warped mind, created an image of Maya as a lingering dark cloud. Her initial search was a way to monitor this cloud, to ensure it wouldn't darken my life again. The mimicry developed as a pathological attempt to understand or control this perceived threat, or perhaps to feel she was incorporating the problem into herself, thereby neutralizing it. It was a terrifying glimpse into the distorted reality she had been living in. It made her actions slightly more understandable from a psychological perspective, but no less horrifying in their impact. It wasn't about not being enough for me, but about trying to control the external threat of my past, and losing herself in the process. This explanation didn't magically fix things. It added a layer of tragedy, but the betrayal remained. The fact that she had chosen such a destructive, secretive path, rather than communicating her insecurities or fears, was the core issue. Months passed. Lily grew, started crawling, her laughter a fragile counterpoint to the tension in the house. Sarah remained a steadfast support, checking in, listening, offering practical advice when I was too overwhelmed to think. She urged me to have a plan B, to consider the possibility that it might not work out, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Making a plan felt like admitting defeat, like giving up on the life I had built, however flawed it turned out to be. We continued therapy. 2 sessions a week, sometimes 3, between couples and individual. It was expensive, emotionally draining, but felt necessary. There were small victories, a moment of genuine connection, a shared laugh that felt almost real, but they were always followed by the return of the doubt, the memory of the archive. One evening, Clara was talking about her day, something mundane about work, and she used a phrase, a specific, slightly unusual phrase I hadn't heard in a while, and I remembered seeing it in one of the notes in the archive, a phrase Maya used frequently. My gut tightened. I looked at Clara. She didn't seem to notice anything. Was it just a coincidence? Had she genuinely picked it up and integrated it into her vocabulary? Or was it a sign that the core mimicry, the deep-seated absorption of Maya's traits, was still there, just hidden better? I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The distrust was a physical ache in my chest. In our next therapy session, I brought it up, hesitantly. The phrase. Dr. Evans explored it with Clara. Clara seemed genuinely surprised, then mortified. She hadn't realized she'd used it. She apologized, her face flushing with shame. Was it genuine, or was she just caught? "This is the challenge, Ethan," Dr. Evans said gently, looking between us. "This isn't a switch you can just flip off. Clara is working on building a stable sense of self, on identifying and managing these obsessive tendencies. But it's a long, hard process. And for you, the process is about healing from the trauma of the betrayal and learning whether or not you can ever feel safe enough to trust again. There will be triggers. There will be moments of doubt. It's about how you navigate them together, or how you navigate them if you eventually decide you can't stay together." That was the core of it. Could I ever feel safe? Could I ever look at my wife and not wonder which parts were real and which were echoes of my past? Could I ever believe that the obsession was truly gone, or just driven deeper underground? Clara continued to make outward efforts. She was more open about her feelings, her struggles. She talked about her therapy breakthroughs, the painful self-discovery she was making. She was trying. I saw that. But the why of it all, the depth of the deception, the years of hidden life, it was a heavy weight on my heart. We had moments that felt like the old days. Playing with Lily in the backyard, sharing a quiet dinner after she was asleep, talking about our hopes for her future. In those moments, the wall of distrust would feel thinner, almost transparent. I would see the woman I fell in love with, the woman who was a wonderful mother, and I would desperately want to believe that was the whole person. But then, a fleeting expression, a particular way she held her head, a new interest she mentioned that felt just a little too similar to something I'd seen in the archive. And the wall would slam back up, thicker than ever. The paranoia was a hydra, cut off one head of doubt and two more would grow in its place. Clara's individual therapist suggested exploring the possibility of underlying conditions that might contribute to her obsessive behavior and identity issues. It was another layer of complexity, another label that felt both terrifying and potentially helpful. Getting a full psychiatric assessment was added to the long list of things we were navigating. My own therapy was crucial. I worked through the renewed trauma from Maya's abuse, which the discovery had dragged back to the surface. I explored my own role in the relationship dynamic, my tendency to perhaps overlook subtle red flags, my deep-seated need for stability after Maya, which might have made me blind to the cracks in Clara's foundation. I learned coping mechanisms for the anxiety and paranoia that now plagued me. Dr. Ramirez helped me understand that my feelings were valid, that rebuilding trust after this kind of betrayal was one of the hardest things a couple could attempt, and that it was okay if I ultimately decided I couldn't do it. Living in the house felt different. The spaces that were once comforting now held ghosts of the secret life. I couldn't look at the sofa, the kitchen counter, the shared computer desk, without remembering the moment of discovery, the sickening realization. It wasn't just a physical space. It was the emotional landscape of our marriage that had been fundamentally altered. One evening, months into therapy, Clara and I were talking about Lily's future, schools, activities. It was a normal conversation, the kind couples have. And for a few minutes the wall felt almost non-existent. I saw her, truly saw her as just Clara, my wife, Lily's mother. The love I felt for her, buried under layers of hurt and distrust, resurfaced, tentative but real. And then she said something that reminded me just slightly of a turn of phrase Maya used. It wasn't a direct copy, not overt mimicry, but just a subtle echo. And the doubt was back. Is she still doing it? Is it just ingrained now? Is this who she is? A patchwork of other people? I didn't say anything this time either. I just nodded, my smile feeling stiff and fake. The moment was gone. The wall was back. It wasn't Clara's fault, not entirely that the trust was so hard to rebuild. Her actions were the cause, but the permanence of the damage was the reality we were living with. She was trying to heal, to become whole, to build a genuine self. But the person she had been for so long, the person who had operated in secret, was the one I couldn't forget. The future remained uncertain. Therapy was helping us understand each other, understand the pathology, understand the depth of the wound. But it wasn't a guarantee of healing. We were still together, living under the same roof, raising our daughter. We were committed to the process, to trying. But the outcome felt like it was balanced on a knife's edge. Could I ever fully trust her again? Could she ever fully shed the layers of her obsession and build a stable, authentic identity? Could our marriage survive the weight of this secret, this betrayal, this profound violation of trust? I didn't have the answers. We were in the middle of the story, not at the end. The happy life I thought I had built was revealed to be far more complex, fragile, and shadowed than I could have ever imagined. The suburban peace of Oak Haven outside felt like a world away from the psychological battleground within our walls. All we could do was keep going, one therapy session, one difficult conversation, one day at a time, hoping that somewhere down the line we might find a path forward, together or apart. But for now, we were just not okay. And maybe that was okay for now. Lily was starting to walk. Her first wobbly steps across the living room floor were a source of pure joy, a reminder of the innocent, beautiful life we were trying to protect amidst the wreckage of our marriage. Seeing her reach for us, dependent and trusting, amplified the pain of the distrust between Clara and me. How could we provide her with a secure foundation when our own ground felt so unstable? Clara seemed genuinely happy when Lily reached milestones. Her love for our daughter was never something I doubted. It was one of the few things that felt undeniably real, but even that was sometimes tainted by the knowledge of her secret life. Had she wanted a baby as part of her perfect life facade? Or was Lily a genuine separate joy, untainted by the obsession? I had to believe the latter, for Lily's sake and for my own sanity. Therapy continued to be the anchor. Individual sessions for both of us and couple sessions together. Clara was digging deep, confronting painful aspects of her past, exploring the roots of her insecurity and her need to latch onto others. Her therapist suspected a possible complex trauma background contributing to her identity diffusion and obsessive tendencies. It was heavy stuff, far beyond the simple jealous wife narrative I might have initially imagined. It made her actions less about me, or Maya specifically, and more about a profound internal brokenness that had manifested in this horrifying way. Understanding the pathology helped in a detached, intellectual way. It shifted the blame slightly from malicious intent to deep-seated illness, but the hurt remained. The betrayal was still a choice she had made, repeatedly, for years. Understanding why didn't erase the fact that it happened. In couples therapy, we worked on transparency. Clara agreed to share access to all her current digital accounts. No hidden folders, no separate cloud storage. It felt like an invasion of privacy for both of us, but it was a necessary step in attempting to rebuild trust. Checking felt sickening, a confirmation of my own lingering paranoia. Not checking felt impossible. I hated myself for needing to check, but I couldn't stop. The therapist said this was normal in the aftermath of such a profound betrayal. The injured party needs proof of safety, and the betraying party needs to offer complete openness, even if it's uncomfortable. Clara handled it with grace, offering her passwords without resistance. It was another small step, but it didn't magically restore trust. Trust wasn't about passwords. It was about feeling safe in someone's presence, about believing their words and intentions without needing proof. And I was nowhere near that. We talked about Maya in therapy, not the details of the stalking, but the impact of that past relationship on me and how Clara's actions had re-traumatized me. Clara listened, often in tears, expressing remorse for causing me more pain. It was hard to hear, knowing how much she had actively pursued information about Maya, the source of my original trauma. It felt like she had weaponized my past against me, even if unintentionally, through her obsession. One evening, months into this new, fragile normal, I was making dinner. Clara was playing with Lily in the living room, their laughter drifting into the kitchen. It was a peaceful moment. And for a second, just a second, I felt it. The warmth, the familiarity, the love I'd felt before the discovery. It was a fleeting glimpse of the life we had, or the life I thought we had. Then, Clara said something to Lily, a silly phrase she used to make her giggle, and I remembered seeing it in a note in the archive, attributed to Maya. The warmth evaporated, replaced by that familiar, cold dread. Was it still happening? Was this just who she was now? A mosaic of stolen traits? I finished making dinner, the moment gone. I didn't bring it up. What was the point? To cause another fight? To hear another apology? To feel the wall go up again? It was exhausting. I realized that the constant vigilance, the analyzing of every word, every gesture, was destroying me. My individual therapist helped me see this. The focus had been so much on Clara's healing, on the possibility of rebuilding the marriage, that I hadn't fully processed my own trauma from the betrayal. The paranoia, the hypervigilance, these were symptoms of that trauma. I needed to heal, regardless of the outcome of the marriage. We discussed the possibility of separation, not as a punishment, but as a necessary step for my own healing, and perhaps for Clara to truly face the consequences of her actions and build an identity independent of the relationship dynamic. It was a terrifying prospect, breaking up our family, even temporarily. But the thought of living like this forever, in a state of constant suspicion and emotional distance, was equally terrifying. Clara was resistant to the idea of separation. She saw it as giving up. She reiterated her commitment to therapy, to changing, and I saw her effort. I saw her pain. It made the decision even harder. In a couples session, Dr. Evans gently pushed us towards exploring the logistics of separation, even if just as a hypothetical exercise. Where would one of us go? How would we handle Lily? It was a painful conversation, bringing the abstract fear into sharp, concrete reality. Neither of us wanted to hurt Lily. She was the innocent party in all of this. We left that session feeling heavy, the air thick with unspoken fears. The walk home through Oakhaven felt different that night. The familiar houses, the quiet streets, seemed less like a comforting backdrop and more like witnesses to our crumbling foundation. The following weeks were tense. We didn't separate, but the conversation hung over us. We continued therapy, continued trying to communicate, but the underlying issues of trust and identity were immense mountains to climb. Clara had a breakthrough in her individual therapy, tracing some of her identity issues back to early childhood experiences where she felt invisible or like she had to perform to gain attention. It was heartbreaking to hear, shedding more light on the deep roots of her pathology. It humanized her actions, but still didn't erase the pain they caused. I, too, had a breakthrough. I realized that my desperate need for the marriage to work, for Clara to be the person I thought she was tied to my past trauma with Maya. Maya had made me feel worthless. Clara had made me feel loved and whole. If Clara, the source of my healing, turned out to be built on a lie related to the source of my pain, what did that say about me? Had I just fallen for another illusion? My self-worth felt tied to the validity of this relationship. Untangling that was crucial. Current part characters 3997, total characters 60991. The focus in therapy shifted slightly, less on just fixing Clara or rebuilding trust, and more on both of us healing as individuals, and then, from that place of greater health, deciding what the relationship could realistically be. Maybe it could be a strong marriage again. Maybe it could be a co-parenting relationship. Maybe it meant moving on entirely. The uncertainty was still there, but it felt less like a void and more like a path with multiple possible directions. Clara continued to be open about her therapy, her struggles. She seemed to be genuinely building a stronger sense of self, separate from the need to mimic or latch onto others. She was exploring new interests that felt authentically hers, not borrowed. It was slow progress, marked by setbacks, but it was progress. I, meanwhile, was learning to live with the uncertainty, to manage the paranoia when it flared up, to trust my own judgment again after it had been so fundamentally shaken. I focused on my work, on Lily, on rebuilding my own sense of stability from within, rather than solely relying on the perceived stability of my marriage. We had moments of genuine connection, moments where the love we had shared felt present and real, untainted by the past. They were fragile moments, easily shattered by a misplaced word or a sudden memory, but they were there. They were enough to keep us trying for now. In a recent couples session, months after the initial discovery, Dr. Evans asked us to reflect on where we were. It was a difficult exercise. I see Clara trying, I said, choosing my words carefully. I see her pain, her effort, and I love her, the woman I fell in love with. But the other part, the secret, the deception, the years of that, it's still there. It's like a shadow over everything. I don't fully trust yet. I don't know if I ever will. Not completely. Clara listened, tears in her eyes, but she nodded. She understood. And for me, she said, her voice stronger than it had been months ago, though still tinged with sadness, I know I caused immense pain. I know I broke everything. I'm working on understanding why I did it, and building a self that doesn't need that. I want to earn back trust, but I know I can't force it. I know it might not be possible. I hope. I hope that maybe, over time, we can find a way. Whatever that looks like. Dr. Evans validated both of us. The difficulty of the journey, the uncertainty of the outcome. She emphasized that healing wasn't linear, and that rebuilding trust after such a profound breach was one of the hardest relationship challenges there was. We left the session not with a decision made, not with a problem solved, but with a clear understanding of where we stood. We were in the middle, still fighting for something, even if we weren't entirely sure what the end result would be. We were still living together in Oakhaven. The house still held its memories, good and bad. Lily was thriving, oblivious to the complex emotional landscape her parents were navigating. We were still in therapy, individually and together. Clara was still working on her identity. I was still working on my trust and trauma. The physical mimicry had stopped. The obsessive digital trails seemed to have ceased. Outwardly, we might have looked like a couple who had weathered a storm and were rebuilding. But inwardly, the scars remained. The distrust was a quiet, persistent hum. I didn't know if we would make it, if the love we had was strong enough, or if the damage was too deep. If Clara could truly become whole, or if the pathology would always be a risk. If I could ever fully let go of the fear, or if I would always be looking for the shadow of Maya in her eyes. We were just taking it one day at a time, living in the uncertainty, hoping, struggling, trying. It wasn't the happy ending I had envisioned in my safe suburban dream, but it wasn't the complete destruction I had feared in the initial panic either. It was just life, messy, complicated, and with an unknown future stretching out before us. And for now, that had to be enough. The late afternoon sun slanted through the living room window, casting warm rectangles on the rug where Lily was playing with her blocks. The scene was peaceful, domestic, a picture of suburban contentment. And for a moment, watching Clara sit beside Lily, gently helping her stack a wobbly tower, I felt a pang of something close to the old feeling. Not the naive bliss of before, but a deeper, more complex love, tinged with sadness and the ever-present awareness of the journey we were on. It had been over a year since I discovered the archive. A year of therapy, of difficult conversations, of tentative steps forward and frustrating steps back. Clara was different. She seemed lighter in a way, more present, less anxious about conforming, more comfortable in her own skin, however fragile that new skin still was. Her individual therapy had delved into the deep roots of her identity issues, connecting them to family dynamics and early experiences that had left her feeling invisible and needing to mirror others to feel seen. Understanding this didn't erase the pain of her actions, but it painted a picture of someone deeply wounded, rather than purely malicious. We still had hard moments where my paranoia would flare up, triggered by something small and seemingly insignificant.